All right, teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one podcast on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. To my regular listeners, you already know what it's all about. You know, when you hit the play button, it's either going to be whether it's just myself doing a solo episode or I have a guest. You will be walking away with some gems. You'll be walking away with an understanding that you are not alone in your struggles. All right, that's the main thing, is understanding that whatever you're going through, there's always going to be somebody that's also going through and here to help you through that moment. Today, I have Mr. Matthew Stafford. Yes, you heard me correctly, Mr. Matthew Stafford. However, may not be the Matthew Stafford that you're thinking of when you first hear the name. It's a Matthew Stafford that has done Matthew Stafford type things, except in the business world. All right. All right. He's not the quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams, but he is, in my opinion, just as important, and probably some would argue even more important, because the work he's doing is actually touching the community and, helping business owners achieve a lot of great things. So all that being said, Matthew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'll just piggyback with the intro a little bit,
Yes, sir.
give you a fun fact. I was born and raised in Michigan, and I was actually, when he was drafted, obviously having the same name, it became kind of a long-standing joke because I could leave my name and number with people, and I've never not got a phone call back being from Michigan.
Yeah.
Well,
And he was number
about
one overall. I remember that.
Yeah, well, now it's been 5 years ago, I moved to LA,
Oh, no.
and he was still the Detroit Lions quarterback, and
Right.
6 months later he got traded to the Los Angeles Rams. So everybody joked around that he was following me, and I actually had called and left my name with the plunge company where you do like the cold plunge.
Yeah.
And they called me back because I have a Michigan number. I have a Michigan area code. And the guy's like, hey, I noticed the
Mhm.
name and then saw
Yeah.
your numbers from Michigan. And
Yeah.
hey, we would give you a free plunge if you'd do some social media for us. And I said, well, tens of people would see that and I would be happy to do it, but it might not
Yeah.
be the result that you're looking for.
All
So
right.
yeah.
Now I have to ask, because you mentioned this. Please tell me you are a Wolverines fan. You're a Wolverines fan.
Yes. Yep.
All
I
right.
was born in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So
You go.
yes, the
Same,
absolutely go
same,
blue.
same.
Yeah.
All right, because I'm born in Maryland, but I grew up a diehard Michigan fan, and
Yeah.
a real fan, folks. Like, I was with them back when the App State losses, and everyone's saying it's not going to be as good of a year, but they said that last year, so they could talk all the smack they want. I'm so pumped. We actually are recording this, guys, on the day college football is officially starting. So if it sounds like I'm a little more excited than usual, there it is. It's not just because I'm interviewing Matthew Stafford, but
Yeah.
college football is officially back, and that's just a great time of year. So
Especially in the big house. Yeah,
in the big
especially in the
house,
big house.
baby. Man, and we're in Florida. I am in, but we're recording this. Both of us are in Florida now, and it is a religion out here. It is a big deal out here in Florida. So, let's get into your story, because I was listening to you on several shows, and you have achieved a lot from an entrepreneurial standpoint. You've achieved a lot in your business. You've been burnt. You've had some incredible highs, some incredible lows. The company, it's build, scale, grow, correct?
Build growth scale. Yep.
Yeah, build, growth, scale. You've achieved a lot, and it didn't come without trauma, growing up. And you spoke a little bit about this on previous shows. So I think the best way to kind of start off the conversation is go back a little bit, talk about your background, some of the hardships that you may have faced when you were growing up, and then, what led you into, getting into that pavement company, and then what you learned and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah. It was really funny. Last night we were at like a founders meeting in Tampa, and the conversation was share a rose and share a thorn in your life right now. And so the first five were kind of, the normal. I gotta like say what's good and then kind of minimize the bad.
Right.
And so when it got to me, I just said, "Hey guys, I'm probably maybe this will be a little bit of a pivot, but I'm going to go much deeper
Mm,
and to see how it goes."
mhm,
And so I did. I shared much deeper, much more vulnerable.
mm,
I have not talked to my mom on the phone in 13 years. Her
mm,
whole different range of events. And the night before on Tuesday night, I'd end up talking to her for an hour and a half, and it's a beautiful conversation. And so I shared that um, with the intention of like being very real and honest and vulnerable.
Mhm,
And the rest of the night for everybody, they said that it changed their level of connection, the amount that they were willing to drop the mask and do these different things. And so I genuinely believe that I have no secrets.
mhm,
I will tell the good, the bad, and everything. Most of the lessons that we learn are
mhm,
from when we do get kicked and we're down, and we have to figure out like whether it's worth it to get back up again. And then every single time it is.
mhm. Yeah, you know, well, first of all, I appreciate your transparency and your vulnerability because again, like you, there have been situations where I have seen my mother in a domestic abuse situation, even if it's not a physical one, the sometimes maybe the arguing, certain things that you see as a kid that you don't understand and you don't know how to necessarily cope with. And you know, when you're growing up in a household like that, and again, like you, I am a pretty big Tony Robbins fan because I went to his event, and you know that's
Yeah.
what built this podcast was that time. When you're going through those things though as a kid, how do you, as you reflect back on it now, how do you sort of look back on it and say, say, how am I going to move forward? You know what I'm saying? Because I know
Yeah.
for a fact, doesn't matter how successful you, doesn't matter how well you are doing from the outside looking in, you still have to cope with these feelings even as an adult. In fact, I would argue to say even more as an adult because you're not a kid anymore, and people are looking at you now to say, I need direction, I need a job, or I need to figure out a way. So how do you kind of go back and cope with the or process a lot of those feelings?
Yeah, so essentially you have to become aware of them first.
Mm-hmm.
Uh I think the majority of my life I just kept thinking, oh, bad luck, oh, this happened,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I made a poor decision here. I didn't realize that I was creating my life again and again and again, and basically had this thermostat of when it got good, I would find a way to get it back down to what I felt I deserved. And if it dipped too low, then I would work harder and bring it back.
Mm,
And once I understood that concept of we all have our own thermostat of what we think is um, enough or not enough,
mhm,
that's kind of what regulates our life. And until we figure out how to raise that thermostat,
mm,
our life is going to continue to continually produce the same result over and over.
mm,
And what I've discovered for myself, and I heard it, years ago from Ed Milet, is the way that you raise your thermostat is to have 100% integrity with
mm,
yourself every single day. So if
mm,
you say, I'm going to get up in the morning and I'm going to exercise every day at 5 a.m.,
mm,
and you get up and you decide, well, this morning I'm a little tired, I don't feel like it. Essentially what you did is you just told yourself you're not good enough,
mm,
or you don't deserve to feel good enough or fit enough. And so your brain is literally using all those times that you don't hold your word with yourself as confirmation
mm.
for the coping mechanisms that we developed when we were younger in those situations.
And you mentioned another great thought leader too, Ed Milet. It's so important that we get a coach or get a mentor, get someone that can call us out on our shit, right? Because too often do when you the example you just shared, too often do people justify these things, right? Oh, it's
Yeah.
raining, I'm sore, you know, and then there's going to be hundreds of people saying, yeah, you don't have to work out today, you don't have to do that little thing. But when you say 100% integrity with yourself, I think especially you listeners, you have to grab a hold of that. All right. You have got to hold yourself accountable as much as possible. And anybody that's pushing you in a direction where you are no longer holding yourself accountable, you're no longer getting out of your comfort zone. That is a very dangerous, dangerous place to be. There's nothing good that's going to happen for you in the comfort zone. I'm just giving it to you real. It's not going to happen. So, you know,
Yeah,
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
I feel like we need that controlled tension. So
Yeah.
I do a cold plunge every day, and people say, "Oh, that's crazy," and I'm like, I understand it is totally crazy because no matter I've already done it several hundred times,
Yeah.
my mind never goes, "Hey, let's go get in the cold plunge and do that. That would be fun."
Yeah.
Ever.
That's,
It's literally every single time it tries to talk you out of it.
yeah.
But mentally, I know that that story,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had that story in a bunch of other areas of my life. And since I've started doing that in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
uh, all these other things that I put off, I don't put off anymore. I'll go, oh, that's gonna suck. Well, I might as well just get it done, and
Mm-hmm.
I get it done. So
Nice.
it's literally brain training of having that integrity of I said I'm going to do it. I know it will be uncomfortable. I'm going to do it anyways.
How long have
And
you been doing it for?
now probably 6 months.
Oh man,
Yeah.
what got you started on that?
It's funny, I was looking at him when I was out in California, like I said, and called him and almost got a free one. But I finally pulled the trigger here
Mm-hmm.
when I moved to Florida, and I would never go back. I originally did it because I'm 53 now and thought
Mm-hmm.
like I want to keep exercising hard and get rid
Yeah.
of the inflammation. So I
Yeah.
did it as a health benefit and didn't realize that the real benefit was the mental strength that you develop over
Yes.
time with it.
It does, yeah. Well, I'm currently training for a marathon, and out here there's a gym that has the cold tub and the sauna, and every
Yeah.
Saturday they do a free run, and I jump in that thing, and I'm getting to like 4 minutes, but I try to add every week and stuff like that. But it is definitely something. It's
Yeah,
something,
yeah, yeah.
especially when you're talking about your body recovering, and if you're going to be working out regularly, these things you have to be maintained, especially as you're getting up there in age. So let's kind of get back to your business or the way you transition. So,
Sure.
as you're going through your teenage years, and obviously you're being raised in a very hostile household, what were those 4 years for you like when you're, going through teenagers and all the things they're going through, and then figuring out how to make that transition into adulthood?
Well, yeah, in full transparency, most of that period of my life I blocked out.
Mm,
Don't have a ton of memories from it. In fact, going through the conversation with my mother the other night, it certainly brought back a bunch of things that I had just I'm when she said it, I knew it was true, but I hadn't thought about it
mm,
literally since I was that age. I would say that for anyone to get any benefit from the conversation,
mhm.
I would say, I'm trying to really think about how I can articulate this so that it matters. We think that those things that we blocked out are our own fault or we're ashamed of them.
Mm,
And what I realized the other night talking with my mom is there was no reason for us to be ashamed of the things that didn't go, the way that we would have liked or the way that we planned, because we didn't plan those and we didn't create those.
mm,
And and I think that that holds us back a lot of times because we're afraid that if we share those things or if we talk about the things about ourselves that we think are
mm,
um, not okay, that people will reject us. And it's just really not true. The more that we can share what's true for us, that's actually where we create the connection.
right.
And I've realized over the last 4 years, the more vulnerable I am in the entrepreneurial community, the deeper, better connections that I have.
Right.
And my thought process around that, because I actually optimize websites and use data and
Hmm.
very analytical for my work.
Right.
As I started my healing process, I started being very analytical about that process as well.
Hmm.
And what I realized, the more that I share in the entrepreneurial um, arena,
Hmm.
that a lot of other entrepreneurs have the same background.
Exactly.
And so I
Right.
thought through that, like, what is trauma? And it's really just a feeling of loss of control.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, in business, when are you actually ever in control? You're always
Mhm.
iterating and changing. And so you're never in control.
Right. Right.
And so, in order for us to be in that environment and function and actually choose to be there,
Mhm.
we have to have some sort of coping mechanism for trauma.
Right.
And so it makes sense that we came up with that when we were younger, being in that environment that now we can survive.
Hmm.
It's not necessarily a healthy coping mechanism, but once we are aware of it and we can turn it to a healthy one, the business then thrives. So
Hmm.
I would say that connection and business and all of that, um, will explode the moment that you realize the things that you're afraid to talk about when you talk about them,
Hmm.
you have zero reason to withhold that.
Yeah.
And it really creates true connection quickly.
I think that's so valuable what you just shared because currently I teach at this school named the Center for Creative Education, and there's a ton of broken homes, ton of families, ton of mothers that are just trying to figure it out, and they don't. Again, they feel alone, they feel tired, they don't know what to do, and what you're sharing essentially is about being as transparent as open as possible with your child. So if things do go fall astray or whatever, they're always going to come back to you. You know, you're 53 years old and you said it's been 13 years and you finally called her and it was almost like, it's not like she's going to reject you or anything like that. But
Yeah.
showing that unconditional love to your children, you have no idea. It absolutely saves lives. And it doesn't matter how old they get. If you show them that unconditional love, they will. I mean, the Bible says this actually, you train up a child the right way, they will not depart from your ways. And, you're living proof example of that because especially and you may not even I'm not sure if you even look at it like this, but even what you went through in the business world, because I was listening to you on a previous show and you had contracts with certain people when you were in the was it the pavement business and stuff like
Yeah.
that. You
Yeah.
had actual contracts and you weren't paid, and
Yeah.
situations were going where it's like, hey, I'm doing the work and all of a sudden you go sell the company to somebody else and we have to scramble and all that. So speak on that a little bit because like you mentioned, and you actually just taught me something when you were talking, is you're right. When you're in business, you actually are not in control at all. And it's kind of difficult to admit that because you get into business because you want control. You don't want that 9 to 5, but then you get in the business like for real and you realize I have no control at all. So, speak on that a little bit, man.
Yeah, it's really honestly a perception.
Hmm.
We believe, oh, well, this is in my analysis, this is what I feel is true, and it's true for me and a lot of other people I talk to, maybe not for everyone, but most of the time, that trauma that we dealt with when we were younger, we developed a self-perception of not good enough,
Yep.
or I'm broken, or I'm a burden, or whatever.
Hmm.
And so then we turn that into, I'm going to go achieve this thing so that I can feel better internally.
It's
And
acceptance, right? That's where you get the
yeah.
right.
And what we realize is we go achieve that thing, and then when it doesn't make us feel better internally, we burn it down, or we get bored, and then start over, or do something else, or find a way to get rid of it.
Hmm.
Um, oh, I lost where I was going with that.
No, I was well. I'll make sure I help you out because
Yeah.
yeah. Well, when you're going through because y- now you got to remind me now. Did you buy into the pavement company or how did you get
No,
that
no,
job?
no.
How did
Yeah.
yeah that was good.
Yeah, so for me, as a kid, I just worked really hard. Ended up, what we did is we traveled all over the country, pouring in parking lots and doing 3D paving for big facilities like Menards and Walmart and
This
distribution
was
centers.
all through like your 20s or like
Yep, 20s and 30s.
okay.
Yep, all the way up till I was about 40 years old. 2008, we did a Walmart in Saline, Michigan.
Yeah.
The general contractor ended up going bankrupt, not paying us just short of a $500,000. And
Okay.
so I was like, yeah, the risk versus reward is no longer here. And I started downsizing, and we went to smaller commercial jobs, and then I sold it to the people that were working for me. But yeah, in that journey, again, you realize that no matter how much success that you have, that's not going to make you feel better internally.
Hmm.
And you see that play out even with famous people and all the other stuff that end up committing suicide, or like can't keep a relationship together.
Hmm.
External things will never make us feel better internally. Until we feel better internally, which is through the healing process of, you know, going back and doing the hard work of figuring out what we need to feel whole, which is actually just to love ourselves.
Right.
Um,
Well, walk us through a little bit about what your day to day was like when you were talking about the pavement company, because one of my best friends is actually from Detroit as well, and I remember I mean, man, I knew him way back when he had this really broken down car and it shut down like right in the parking lot for us, and he fixed it right on the spot. And he looks at me, look, man, I'm Motor City, man. I know how to work with my hands and all that. So, as you were talking, I'm picturing, the Detroit kind of the blue collar mentality, the
Yeah.
ability to work with your hands and all that. Can you walk us through what your day to day was like? Because to now look at you and you're Mr. Online, Mr. Software guy, it
Yeah.
has to be such a huge
It is. It was
contrast
huge.
in
So
terms
yeah,
of
we were very scrappy.
yeah,
We did a lot of things that nobody would believe that would
right.
happen with the size of crew that we had. In fact, it was really funny because we'd do those really big pours. Concrete guys are known for being like drinkers and a bunch of other stuff, partying hard, and then
Like
going
Lance,
and working.
I'm not, yeah, Lance, you're
Yeah,
grab
it's a rough crew.
right.
Well, because we did those big pours, we would pour from like 2 a.m. to 8 a.m.
Hmm.
Before traffic would start in these cities. And so I can't tell you how many times we got pulled over at 2 a.m. on our way to the job, waiting, with concrete trucks waiting for us.
Uh-huh.
And the police are thinking that we're out drinking and on our way back. And we're like, no, we're not going home. We're on our way
Oh
to
no, way
work.
to work, right.
Yeah. So I would do that all day, and concrete doesn't give you a do-over. Like when it's ready to be finished, you have to finish it and you do it then. And sometimes it waits and sometimes it doesn't. And so one skill that I developed over the years is I can fall asleep anywhere, anytime when I just say, hey, I need a little bit of rest. I can fall asleep. My friends have pictures of me falling asleep at a gun range when they were doing skeet shooting. Like it
Man.
just, I don't have an issue with that.
Right.
So in that scrappiness, I would literally sleep, finish concrete, and then when we would go back to the hotel rooms, the rest of the guys would go do their fun stuff, and
Hmm.
I would do all the paperwork and the bids and things like that.
Right.
And yeah, it really went like that for years. That business, I ran it for 23 years.
That's incredible. So, again, and this is really why I was really excited to talk to you about this because, Mr. Make it move, make it move, make it move, Mr. Tony Robbins, So you eventually, I guess you just kind of had enough. This is over 2 decades of pavement, doing a lot of hard manual labor, tired of
Yeah.
getting burned, tired of chasing people around with contracts and stuff. So walk us through kind of the moment, I guess, where you decided you're going to hang it up and then go see Tony Robbins and then, build what you have built now as far as, helping people with their e-commerce and, selling online and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I was traveling. I was in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We were pouring some parking lots for Menards, and I took a long weekend and went to a UPW by Tony Robbins. And
Insane. Where was the UPW?
it was in Newark, New Jersey.
I was in Jersey. Okay.
Yeah, it was in Newark, New Jersey. And I flew to that and did that, and met two or three people who have been my friends ever since.
Mhm.
Really good friends ever since. And I set a goal that weekend that in 5 years I would be out of the concrete industry and be online full time because he sold a DVD set.
Mhm.
Kind of dates how far back it was. He was selling DVD sets.
Those are
Um,
the small discs, guys. If any
yeah.
Gen Z's out there listening, those were discs that we actually had to make and sell it and all that. There was actually something called VHS tapes as well. But again, I might be talking to a brick wall, talking to the younger kids about that. So I know what you're talking
Yeah, and so he sold this DVD set called Money Masters, and the first one I got was Frank Kern talking about selling online ebooks about how to train your parrot to talk. I'm like,
about.
wow, that sounds interesting. I had never used online for anything other than to do blueprints and emails and
Hmm.
then communication, never to sell anything. And so I started looking at that, and I came across a site. My first online money came from a site called Teespring.
Hmm.
We put some designs on t-shirts and then ran Facebook ads to them, and made a lot of money really quickly. In about 3 years, we did $15 million worth of t-shirt sales. And
Now,
I was like,
yeah, because I heard you mention that on a previous show. Was there sort of a strategy towards that? Was there like a target or like when it comes to the messaging on the t-shirts,
yeah,
anything
for sure.
there
For
that
sure.
that
Yeah, I got very analytical and figured out how to scrape names
hmm
from the Facebook IDs. And so I was able to create some name shirts. And the one that I did that really hit and is the first one that I ever made a lot of money with was it was Schmidt Happens. And I targeted all the people with the last name Schmidt instead of and so it
Wow.
was it
Wow.
was
There were, yeah, there were pieces of what you have now already. You were seeing it. Oh man. Yeah,
yeah.
that's excellent.
Yeah, and so that first shirt, I put it up and started running some ads to people with the last name Schmidt,
Mhm.
and within 24 hours, I had made about 40 grand, and I thought, oh my word, this is crazy.
Wow.
Um, I didn't do anything other than run a few Facebook ads
Mhm.
and made, a month's worth of income easily.
Right.
And at the time, and I just thought like, yeah, there's something here. And that's when I got really excited about it and just started pursuing that
Mhm.
and slowly basically sold off my brick and mortar, you know, investments or, the businesses that I had and went full time online.
Right, and I'm glad you shared that because one of the things that I've spoken about in the past, and it's important for any new listeners that are tuning in now, is you with Facebook or social media, anything out there, you can study psychographics, you can study people and their traits, things that you can do to know exactly what you should create, what type of product you should create, exactly what are the dimensions, what are the services, how you're going to reach people. All that stuff can be done on the back end before you spend any money whatsoever on actually creating the product. Because once you have the product, you actually have to sell it. And I believe what your company speaks to is figuring out those analytics and getting that down. So now I know before, like long before the LLC and you get the logo and the websites and all that, you know exactly who you want to serve and exactly what you're going to sell them and all that stuff. So when you did sell it, talk a little bit about how you were able to put this whole thing together into a framework and package it now to something that business owners can now benefit from.
Yeah, I think data data is available to all of us now, and it's
Yes,
getting
yes,
better
yes.
and better. Right now with AI, it's changing astronomically. So I think that there's probably never the way that we had to do it was very difficult and it
Mhm,
required a lot of work. There's probably never been a better time that I could even imagine.
mhm.
Um, in the world to be a business owner as right now. Like it is truly a blue ocean.
Yes.
And I believe that people who think like, oh, it's saturated, all that, like I will tell you flat out, every single time that we've had really good competition, it only made us better. And it only validated the market that if there is competition, it means it's something that people want. The
Mhm,
things that scare me is if nobody else is doing it, nobody else has thought of it,
mhm.
then probably other people have tried and it just failed
Right.
and it didn't work. So I like competition. I like knowing that the market is there and so I'm not afraid of any of that.
Right. And you actually also, one of the taglines to your company is that traffic is not necessarily the problem of people. And that
No.
one kind of really struck me, having a sales background. I'm always interested in getting in front of more people. The typical sales advice is actually go find places where there's more traffic. Even when I was
Yeah, it's a
like
numbers
go get
game. It's
traffic
this,
and
that.
all that stuff. So, you kind of flip the mindset, especially to anybody that has any experience in sales. We're like, wait a minute, you sure traffic's not my problem? So, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'll give you my realization is like the average if you look at your average closing ratio if you're in sales or if you look at your average sales conversion on a website
Hmm.
it's in the low single digits.
Absolutely.
Typically 2-3% in e-commerce.
Hmm.
Hopefully if you're in sales like your closing ratio is more, but everybody thinks like, oh, okay, I need to go get another 100 visitors for 2 or 3 more sales. And they focus on that. And what I said was, hang on a minute. I had 100 people come to my website or I had 100 phone calls and 97 of them left, didn't do business with me.
Yeah.
They raised their hand and said that they were interested in what I had. I just wasn't compelling enough to close more sales. So instead of going out and finding 100 more people to make 2 or 3 more sales, I thought it would be much easier to make 2 or 3 more sales off of those warm the warm traffic, the people who actually had already raised their hand.
Mhm.
And if I could get my closing ratio to 6%, then
Mhm.
I could afford to buy more traffic than anyone else. And I would literally dominate just by market share alone. Because if they're converting at 2 or 3 and I'm converting at 6, I can spend a lot more money to get in front of a higher qualified buyer.
Mhm.
And so I went through really refining the process and using data to do that so that we knew how people interacted with our website. We knew what part of the page got them to click and click to call. We knew what, where they were converting the highest. And we would analyze that data and figure out how to use that on the website more valuably. And essentially, that's how we built our entire business around using data to come up with best practices that make the websites convert so much higher.
So what are all the functionalities of the site? And I ask this because I have actually hired a coach who has been, man, he's been a blessing for the past since I've been out here in South Florida. And one of the things that he does really, really well is he builds funnels. Like he'll have it to where somebody might come in for a $10 book, and then immediately that person gets an email, hey, do you want a package of books? And then do you want a course? And then do you want the high ticket offer and all that? So are you able to have a software where the creators now are able to build funnels and figure out how to attract that right person and stuff like that?
Yeah, no, our specialty is really like when you have that built, we look at the data and help you refine that. So
Right.
know where they're dropping off or where the messaging is clear, where it's not,
I got
test
you. Right, right,
things.
right.
That's
Mm-hmm.
what we do. So we really are very data analytical driven.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've been doing this full time for the last 8, 9 years, looking at that stuff. And I would say that more than half of the tests that we run still don't win. And that's being very, very good and doing this at a very high level for hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars through our carts. Uh, the fact that I can still be wrong more than half the time means that most business owners don't have a really good set of like what we call best practices.
Mm-hmm.
We put those in, and after we get those in, it's really hard for us to beat them because over the last 9 years, those have gotten better and better and better. And so now when we start with those,
Mm-hmm.
we're always essentially it's a title match every single time. We're fighting the very best control that we've ever had
Mm-hmm.
and trying to beat it.
Right. So the primary, like I was telling you before we started recording, the primary listener to this show is a business owner that is struggling to keep teams. They're struggling to keep people in their staff or to get folks to believe in what they're doing or to even in many ways just create work so they have folks coming in and believing in what they're doing. So if they wanted to reach out to you, or what are some of the criterias that you would be expecting from people that are interested in what you're saying and interested in your service? What do they have to bring to the table? Because I know it has to be a situation where you're not just looking to bring in anybody, but it has to be people that have their P's and Q's together. This is what I want from have vision for the company and all that.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of what you and I have already talked about is going to get them to that level.
Right.
If you can be transparent with your team,
Yes.
like they'll have so much more respect for you if you can be honest and
Mm-hmm.
radically transparent and say, hey guys, I don't have it all figured out. This is where we're going. I'm not sure how we're going to get there, but this is where we're going one way or the other. And you believe in that vision, that gives them the ability to also go, okay, he doesn't have it figured out, but I believe he's going to make it and
Right.
he's going to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually gets them involved
Yes.
because then their input matters. If you are like, hey, we're doing it this way, my way is the best way no matter what, um, that I feel like that's demanding respect instead of earning respect.
Mm-hmm.
And the level of team that you have behind you will be radically different.
Right.
um, I know for a fact that the people that are on my team will run through brick walls with me because they know that where we're going makes a difference. It doesn't just make more money. It will make more money, but it also makes a difference.
Right. That honesty piece is so very important. And a lot of you business owners, you got to get a hold of that. I cannot tell you how important it actually is because these people have lives, and I've said it on multiple occasions. We live in a very shrinking world. If people who are working for you don't like you, they're moving on. They can have their options of finding someone on LinkedIn and meeting somebody else and keeping it moving. So you got to be now more than ever, like you had just mentioned, honesty is the only way you're going to get people to really buy into what you're all about.
Yeah, what I would say is businesses don't have business problems.
Hmm.
Businesses have people problems.
People.
And what I mean by that is uh, there's plenty of business to
Hmm.
do. Like every single thing that we touch, breathe, eat, you know, everything is
Everything.
business.
Yeah, everything.
And there is no shortage of that.
Hmm.
The shortage is people who can actually connect and create a team
Yes.
around a shared vision, and then the business will happen. Like you build the people, and the people will build the business. And I truly believe that.
Right. And that's regardless of title, regardless of entry level, regardless if you have an input, you have got to give these people a voice because you just never know. You just never know. I mean, I'm 1000% sure you were doing, running your concrete business. You would have never realized, hey, now I'm Mr. Sit behind the laptop and study analysts and study and make sure
Right.
but that input and having that experience, it translated actually really well into the world that we're currently living in. So because you, like you mentioned, you did the paperwork, you weren't just out there drinking and then, all right, look, I'm going to go put some concrete. No, I actually have to do the physical paperwork, which I'm just, as you're talking, I'm just imagining how tedious that shit was, So, yeah, I could only imagine what you had to go through during those times. So, I do want to be very respectful of your time, Matt. Can you just kind of tell people a little bit about what's next, how they can get in touch with you if they want to hear more, and just kind of put all that stuff out there now?
Yeah, for sure. If you are looking to have your website convert higher, make more sales from the same amount of traffic, our website's buildgrowscale.com. My email is matt@buildgrowscale.com, so you are welcome to email me, and I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. I genuinely get a lot of fulfillment out of that, so I don't just say it hoping that I'm not just saying that and then you'll never hear from me. If you send me an email, I see those emails and I will respond.
Absolutely. And all of that will be included in the show notes as well. So, Mr. Matthew Stafford, last thing I do to close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. You are back to, I guess you're back to, putting concrete down. You're getting shafted by people. You're getting burnt. You're dealing with a lot of transition. Pretend that that version of Matthew Stafford has come into the Zoom room. Give him some words of encouragement, and we will officially close.
Yeah, I mean, you might be bitter and losing faith in, the system, but just know that you're a lot closer to success than you realize if you keep going. On the other side of what you're avoiding is everything that you've ever dreamed of.
Amen to that. And if this is your first time listening in, I'll explain to you the reason I close out the shows with that question is because if you are specifically in that situation, we're here to serve you. We're here to help you. We're here to just, make again, like I said at the beginning, like I said, to open up all the shows is understand you're not going through it alone. This was a big world out there, and there's always someone here that is going to support you in wherever you are in this particular season of your life. So, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.